thanks to Mr. Red Archer and Mr. Dion Morris, all those persons who work in radio, behind the scenes albeit, but still ensure that things happen the way they ought to in radio. And that's why we are here today, and we thank them for their efforts as well. But a special thank you again, also now being extended to my guest, Mr. Anton Minnis, image enhancement and consultant. Mr. my big brother, Mr. Anthony Bando Bostwick, a man who I hold in high regard. He's like an adopted father. He's like an uncle. He's a big brother, as it were, and that leads to so many other things. And you'll be hearing more from him in that vein moving forward. He's here to add his insights and wisdom, and I thought it not robbery to invite him in. Also to another brother, it's all brothers here today, and we're all men seeking to find solutions to the challenges that face us. Mr. Harrison Thompson, and Mr. Harrison Thompson, his name is synonymous with healing, mending, and restoration, guiding us, as it were, with the Spirit through whatever challenges we are going through and what we are facing on a daily basis. I want to thank you, brother, for being here. It's a pleasure to have you here. And also, last but by no means least, the rose surrounded by the thorns, Lady Shaw Curry, who I reached out to, and she responded just in the nick of time, as it were, who I've known for a while now, out of Northern California. Is it Los Angeles, Ms. Shaw Curry?
It is the Bay Area, so it's Northern California, Bay Area. Yes.
So you're a Golden State Warrior fan then?
That's right. That's right. And I'm a Curry, so it just makes sense, right?
All right, we're gonna have to shake the family tree and see what falls out, because we got some Currys down here too.
Okay. We'll have to see. We'll have to do the lineage.
All right, let's get into it. I wanted this topic, of course, on the Father's Day to deal with men and what it requires of us, or what is required to be a father. There are a lot of elements that we can deal with, so many things, but let's start at the very beginning. You know, we're all fathers here. We're all men who have children in their very own lives, and they are the salt of the earth, standing in the gap, present, not missing, there for every event in their child or children's lives. And then there are men who may have had a father, and they're all about their spreading their seed, you know, germinating, recreating, and not being responsible in their reproduction. So let me get to Brother Harrison first. I bring this one to you, sir. What factors are there? Is it just a simple choice? Is it simple our rearing, the way we were brought up, what we saw as boys, as young men in our community, in our homes, the way we looked at men who were older than us and be like, oh, I want to be like him. Back in the 80s, you know, it was the drug dealer, the big car and the rim and everything. It was like everybody wanted to go on chain, and we wanted to be like that. Yes. It's immortalized in Screen and Power and all these other movies that we see. But what are the choices that a young man would make that would cause him to say, hey, I'm locking in, I'm locking up, and I'm locking down to be a good man?
Yeah, in a perfect world, I think it's about a man who says he is now willing to be inconvenienced by what it actually means to serve in the highest way possible, right?
Okay.
Yes, it's an interview. It's an interview with someone out of the Bahamas. So yes, I will be talking
into someone else, someone who is younger than you, someone who has yet to do and go through some of the things that you have gone through. That ability to pour. Because we know we can reduce fatherhood to its simplicity of just being able to bear a child. But it's so much deeper than just biologically being able to have a child. It's your ability to lead, to instill principles, to instill values,
right,
and to lead with example, not necessarily just words.
Hey, intellectual soapbox.
What people should be doing.
Thank you, Keto.
Do we take the accountability to actually be that thing that we are talking about?
So boys aren't the choice.
Yeah.
It's simply just a choice.
It's a choice. And unfortunately, growth is optional. Aging is non-negotiable, but growth is a choice. And a lot of people have not made the choice to grow and to be better.
Say that again. I don't want you to skip it, because that's kind of heavy.
Yeah, man. Aging is non-negotiable. We will all grow old and die. But growth is a choice. Some people haven't grown since they took their
I love it.
Grown since
Right.
Some people haven't grown since they got their job, and we have to wake up every day and choose the inconvenience of what better means.
And you use the word inconvenience. Put that in context. What does it mean to just the boys going out, but you got to stay home and help the wife or the girlfriend make sure that baby's taken care of? You can't go with the boys and play and hang on a Friday night.
Yeah, man, because you know what. I'm going to speak from that cognitive behavioral perspective, right?
Right.
The inconvenience meaning that good things don't always feel good to do.
Okay.
Right? The sacrificing, the servicing, the ability to give to others before I give to myself. Those things are inconvenient to our selfish nature. And because a lot of men have not conquered that selfish nature, give what it is that they have inside of them, which is selfishness. Right, so only until my needs are met can I give to you. But that's problematic.
That's deep. Shaw, I want to bring you in. I heard you over there. We heard you, and I want you to add the female perspective. You're a male advocate. You speak to us as men, and you help us in so many ways. I refer to you as like the female Kevin Samuels, so we got to protect you and make sure you're straight. So talk to us from a female's view as to what fatherhood is. What females do? Females have a view about fatherhood? Well, an ideal father when a woman looks at a man like. This is the checklist of things that he should have, or you want him to have. Talk to us about that.
Thank you. And I thank you guys so much for having me. And happy Father's Day to everyone that's in studio now who is a father, and everyone listening who is a father. Happy Father's Day. You know what? This is the thing. Okay, so from my perspective, this is the thing I've been breaking down for years, right? As men, you guys have to step up no matter what. But on the other hand, as boys and adolescents, you were taught to be quiet, suck it up, stop being weak. And so you're taught at a very, very, very young age to be quiet and to suck it up and to not express your feelings per se. But what happens is you have these boys and adolescents who grow up into men who don't know how to properly communicate in a lot of instances because they were always taught to be quiet. They're taught to keep their emotions and their feelings stuffed down. But on the other side of that, you expect them to be working and productive citizens of society, and also to be able to have proper communication when it comes to a spouse. So, that being said, to your question, I don't feel like there's any certain thing that a woman will look for per se, but it's all based off of action. So if she sees you moving in a certain way as a father, a lot of women will see that as attractive, right? If she sees you in a certain manner, if it's your spouse or if it's someone that's looking to date you or if it's someone that's being observant, a lot of women will see your actions as a father compared to what you say you do as a father.
Thank you for that. I want to bring in Mr. Anthony Bostwick right now. Big Bro Bando, Mr. Bostwick, thank you so much for being here, sir. And a special thanks to your wife for giving you that time away, that get out of jail free card. Listen, fatherhood for you, and you have seniority here, and I yield to you. You've spoken wisdom into me several times as a mentor and a guide. Fatherhood, what? If you can define it for you, what does it mean for you?
Well, first of all, let me say thank you for having this intellectually stimulating conversation, and thank you for having these fine brethren, I guess I call them brothers, around this table.
Yes.
We're in a society that has evolved. And I've written many op-eds that speak to fatherhood in context. But as you know, we have the dictionary definition of fatherhood. We have the Afrocentric definition of fatherhood. And then we have the Bahamian definition of fatherhood.
Yep. Okay.
So we must now put this in context. In the Bahamas, we were raised by a community. Everybody was your father.
True.
From the priest to the lady in the house to the gentleman on the street. Fatherhood is a word that we use so frivolously in today's context because we seem to not realize that we are all fathers to every child that walk on the street. Whether they're, no matter your wealth, class, or station. We all have a moral responsibility to be a father to the child on the street. What has happened in our country is that we have evolved into where people don't know each other no more.
Silos?
When we grew up through a corner, you could tell Jesus, everybody knew who you were.
True.
And everybody knew which house you came up. And everybody was your father or your mother. But back to the original question that you asked, Father to me is being that, not only that provider, but that spiritual person that uplifts, educates, and informs, and discipline.
Mm.
One of the things that we have left out of our whole diaspora from the 80s, and I always say, if you survived the 80s in the Bahamas, and you, hey,
Yes, sir.
you got to
Yes,
tap
sir.
yourself on the shoulder. To many young men every week. And I said, if you came out of this late 70s, 80s, and you're still here today,
Right.
you ought to tell God that, you've been gifted. Because many of my friends are gone. Many wore the Rolex, the pastiche, the cinnamons, the Le Bon, to those places. They're not here no more. But we're sitting around this table trying to restructure ourselves mentally to make sure that we build a better country.
Yeah.
Because if you look at the paper on a Monday morning or every day, young men are just dying.
Sure was this morning.
Young men are dying. And many of those, I was godfather to. Okay? I'm from by the Zanzibar, G. My neighbor string buried through King Street.
Being down, being down, Grandstown. Yes, sir.
Grandstown.
Yes, sir.
And I serve in St. Agnes, G. And many of the young fellas that I grew up with aren't there no more. Because many didn't have fathers in their homes. And when William Thompson said to make sure we keep that place open, where you only pay $1 a week for children to come to school, our generation must now come out of these silos. We must now come back into these places because it may not affect you because you live east or west, But when that person come in your house and your Ring camera see them, it's a whole different story. Okay, so what I'm saying in terms of fathers is that we have to now, as you say in the barbershops, where I think is one of the most educational, fundamental, social places without a drink. But just a haircut. Okay? It teaches and it preaches, eh? And like I said, until we go back to GIFF, where you have God, income, family, and then fraternity. Okay? You got to put God first in this thing. Yeah. And I preach it every day. And then a man has to go out and earn an income, or his wife. And then you have to deal with your family structure. And one of the things that we moved away from in terms of God cannot be everywhere, so he gave us good grandparents. Okay, and it's a plaque I have on the wall in my office. God cannot be everywhere, so he created grandparents. My grandparents, she raised more than 80-something children. Wow. And she said, bring them into my house. Don't even bring them into my house.
Yeah.
And now I understand why.
Yeah.
Structure.
Yeah.
But you go into church, where you're gonna carry out your fundamentals, but that don't mean you're gonna stray away from what you have to do as a father, because you have to be there for your children. Today, we had everything prepared, but I had to come here to you today because these gentlemen around the table sacrificed being here because we have a message to send to this country. Father is not just rearing a child. Father is building a nation.
That's right.
It's not a badge that anyone should and could wear.
Like I told you earlier, the road material receives its fine polish from repeated efforts alone, and nothing short of indefatigable exertion.
Yes, sir.
Okay? And what I'm saying to those who are listening is that we have to continue, persevere, uplift, educate, and inform. We have so many young men out there today. You know what pleases me? When I drive to the U.S. Embassy corner, the young man that stood on the corner, who used to come to my back door with no shirt on, is now a pastor and an inspector on the police force. Wow. And you know what he says to me? Thank you for changing my life. Thank you for grabbing me and putting me in the Jeep and taking me to school.
That's what it's about.
And there are many young men out there. See, we can't be apologetic. And as I said earlier, we cannot be apologetic for doing what is right. Sometimes you got to break some necks to make things right. There are many young men today, I'm talking about senior bankers, senior investors, who walk up to me and say, "Boy, Mr. B, when you punched me that day, why you punch me and drop all us to 60 sweeting in your Jeep and push us out and tell us go to school?" But it happened to us. We had men who cared for us.
Right.
And the thing I find missing today in our society is men who take time out with other children who are disenfranchised.
I agree.
Yes, a whole new generation came into our society, but that does not neglect that what we have, because our institutions are not holding it. If you look at it, our Sandlands, this or that, can't even handle the amount of people who are mentally challenged on the street. I moved 21 vagrants off the street myself with the help of the authority in the middle of the night. Nobody knew. We have a problem. We have a problem, and national pride, to me, in a certain sense, is gone. National pride in this country, as we knew it, is gone. Because you go in certain areas, what you see today couldn't happen because fathers made sure that these homes were regulated, made sure that these homes were kept in check. But don't get me wrong, those women anchored those homes.
Very good point. I want us to pivot from that. And you mentioned the barbershop, and it's fitting that we have you in a barbershop here, and I've seen it myself. Brother Antoine Minnis, you minister, you give haircuts, but you also minister in a unique way. I've heard you, I've seen things about to get to a boiling point where one faction or one fella was going after another fella, and all I heard off on the side, "Hey, what happened over there?" And you kind of cracked the whip, and they were like, "Oh, sorry, Mr. Minnis, sorry, Mr. Minnis, sorry, Antoine." Talk to us about what you do in the barbershop, because your barbershop is strategically located in an area that's a hotbed for violence amongst young men. And they all come there, and I see them. I've seen a young man come to the barbershop surrounded by 4 fellas. They ain't coming to get their haircut, but they're like bodyguards for him because he's out of the area that is his safe zone, as it were. And he's crossed the borderline, as it were, to come get a haircut. And that could be kind of tense because I just come in to get a haircut and make the order, and I ain't want no come there to start shooting. So listen, but how do you deal with those young men? Well, you're a father to them as well. They respect you.
Okay, well, to piggyback off what both Mr. Thompson and Mr. B said, both of them spoke pertinently to men and how we should react. The thing I see is that ultimately we're responsible.
It's on us.
It's on us. The children today that are wearing their pants half off their butt, who are smoking the weed, who are rude, who are ill-mannered, we're responsible for that. Because, when I look at it, modern day parenting says that you should take a 5-year-old, place him in the seat of decision, and then try to see what decision he would make and try to train him from that point. That doesn't make sense to me, because you're placing an individual with limited exposure, limited understanding as to what it is that they're reasoning, and who would only cater or pander to the things that please them right away, not the things that make sense. And you're asking them to make an educated or sensible decision on anything. And that's where we go wrong, right?
I'm going to say something, and we're going to deal with this later. So they could choose their gender, but they can't choose their bedtime. Okay. Anyway, let's continue on. We can deal with that. 25. Yeah, we can deal with that.
So you have a situation like that where you're asking, you're trying to say this is modern day parenting, and you're walking away all of the traditional values and parenting practices that made us who we are, and trying to change that and feel as though the children are going to come out better than we did.
Right.
And that's just not going to happen. That doesn't work, right? So when we deal with these young men that come into the store, first and foremost, I have to be a respectable individual in their eyes in order for me to be able to speak to them and calm them.
Yeah.
Has anything ever popped off? Like, I mean, I know.
It has come to where words flew,
Uh-huh.
right? But like you say, once I open my mouth, they know that, okay, I've crossed the line.
Okay.
And usually they just get up and walk out because, okay, they call me Foundation.
I heard that before, yeah.
They call me Foundation.
Uh-huh.
And to the point where I've seen older gangsters check the younger ones and say, wait, hey, that's Foundation, watch yourself. And it's not because I'm belligerent or angry with them, right? It's because I deal with them in a respectful manner, right?
Right.
I deal with them on the foundation of principle. Because first and foremost, no one respects them in their communities.
Mm.
They're economically disenfranchised, so people look at them as, this dirty little boy around here. And he may move something for the purpose of getting something to eat. He may move something for the purpose of just having a moment of enjoyment for himself, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we look at that and figure he's wayward and we want to, throw him in jail or take him to the dogs instead of stopping for 1 minute and say, hey, are you hungry? Come here. And just give him something to eat without a string being attached to it.
Right.
Or if he needs something like a soda, let's just say a soda is a thing for him to enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
Let's buy him the soda, right? And that opens the door for you to speak into the man, into the young man, as opposed to you speaking at him.
Right.
And that doesn't work. When you speak at a young man who's looking for direction, he's looking for a sense of belonging, and you're gonna speak at him, he's gonna close up all his windows to you. But when you can speak into him, and he realizes that what you're saying is designed to build him and not destroy him, then you have the man.
Do you have any success stories where you were able to even get them out of that lifestyle, as it were, with regards to, because I witnessed it myself. I go to the barbershop, I come to the barbershop, I see the fellas down there, and I'm like, okay. I mean, it just reminds me of Fox Hill. But what success stories, if any, do you see as a result of them seeing you as a man who they rate, as a street lawyer is, they rate you, they respect you, and they take advice from you? And I'm sure because they'll ask you, hey, I want to do this thing, I don't do that, without revealing too much.
I've trained a few of them in barbering.
Mm-hmm.
One of them works with me.
Okay.
And he is probably the most respectable young man that I've come across. Right, in a while. At the age of 19, he's commanded the respect of many of his peers.
Right.
To the point where they listen to him, and he's now speaking to them about their behavior.
Right.
Okay. I have taught at BTV. I have been able to offer scholarships to about 3 of them, and they've gone on to do electrical work and things like that. So there are success stories like that, where even those who are older got into gangsterism and they serious gangsters. But when they understand that they can come to me and ask for something, and I can say, well, okay, give me a day or give me 2, that changes the dynamic of them having to go out there and pull a gun on somebody or do something like what happened this morning in order for them to get it. Because oftentimes these guys, they only need somebody to be that person, like a big brother or a dad or uncle, someone that they can go to and look to.
A mentor.
Someone who could speak to them, someone who looks at them and say, that's a great job. I'll give you an example. Like I said, there was a time when one of the younger ones, he was trying to show off a bit to gain some type of acclaim with them. And the older one, he checked him right away. He said, no, get up, sit down, don't do that. And when the older one came in my chair, I spun the chair and I looked him in the face, I said, proud of you. I respect what you did. I really appreciate that. That's a big man move. And his mouth dropped open, like, wow, someone actually said that to me, And he got up when he was done with the service. He got up and he looked at me, and he said, "Respect, senior man. Respect." And wherever I see him today, I'm driving by in the car. He always say, "Respect, senior man." Because that resonated. You know what I mean? That took root in him. Right. To know that, but someone saw something that I did that was good, and they made mention of it, and not just someone I respect, someone the community respects, someone they, he acknowledges me.
You're paying it forward, right? Because if someone were to try come at you sideways, and it may have happened, unfortunately, and there's recourse, because these fellas got your back. They try to break in your car or something like that. All you gotta do is put the word out.
We've had an incident where there were some people who didn't understand what was going on with me and one of the young men, right? Because he was in prison and he came out. When he came out, he
I
came to
agree,
me,
Aaron,
he
and I
decided to call me
speak
father.
about that. I need to make another post
He
about
said,
that. I
"Father,
agree,
I
Aaron.
really don't want
Absolutely.
to go back into this life.
We need
These dudes
more.
are yet upset with
We need
me
more,
because of someone that I
especially the ones that
talked
look
to
like
in
us
jail.
that
I
can
had
help.
to talk to this
Absolutely.
person because to get in
Breezy
any
F baby, yes, you
physical
can.
altercation or relationship with this
My
person,
website is up there,
that
so
put
you
me in
can
this
book a
position,
session with me.
right?
Yes, Breezy, you can do
And
that.
when he came out, they had a problem with him, and I was
Thank you,
working with him.
Aaron.
He went to
Yes.
church with me. I gave him clothing, fed him, and I heard the word that because of that, I had hit on me. Right?
Wow.
So I was like, seriously, But here it was. I went to the hospital one time to see somebody from church, and one of the other guys was laying on a gurney because he was in an accident. So I told the nurse, I said he was out cold. I said, when he come to, please let him know I was here, right? I guess she didn't remember my name, but she said the bald-headed guy was there. So he came, he came to the shop with crutches, right? And he was like, "Man, you ain't come to see me." I said, "Didn't the nurse tell you someone was there?" He said, "You was the bald-headed guy?" He said, he sat there for at least about 2 and some hours, and he healed up everything that I always see him. And I can tell you, when that incident occurred and that word went out, he walked there himself and said, "Look, y'all have a problem with him. Y'all have a problem with all of us."
It's a lot of them, but it's more us.
Yeah, so and amazingly, all of them who set that up came in the store, and all of us became cool.
Wow.
They walk and they were like manners. Their word manners, manners, and I was able to talk to them. Some stopped. Most of them are dead now, but some stopped, and I see the change.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. 1540 AM, 104.5 FM, the national voice of the Bahamas. We're talking manhood, fatherhood, we're trying to define it. We're working our way towards it. I want to say a special thank you to my guests who are here in studio. You just heard from Mr. Anton Minnis, Mr. Anthony Bostwick, Big Brother Bando, also to Mr. Harrison Thompson, and joining us via Zoom is Miss, of course, Shaw Curry, the rose amongst the thorns. Let's get into this. What, if we can, in our own view, moving forward, what advice would you give if you're speaking to some young man right now and they're asking you, Mr. Harrison, Mr. Thompson, what is a father? What is a daddy? What's a daddy supposed to do? Because our children ask questions in the simplest form. They ask you, what is a daddy? And some adults can't define a certain thing these days, but we're gonna go there, but we're not gonna stay there. What is a daddy? What's a father?
Yeah, so the first thing I would say to young men, and maybe any man who's listening, you cannot expect yourself out of another person until you've been given an opportunity to pour into that person for accountability's sake, right? I cannot expect my child to think like how I think, to do what I would do, until I've poured into my child. We have so much expectation of what we think people should be doing, but we miss every single day opportunities to pour into these people, to minister to people, to help one another, because we're so caught up in our own lives. So many of us have not necessarily done the right things, and so we've become so distracted, we become dysfunctional, we no longer see presence in what's going on. It's somebody else's issue.
Yeah.
But just as Brother B said, it's all of our issue. Every day that we wake up and we walk around, this is going to come back to me in some way or another. The fella living out life a key, he has to pass through some kind of ghetto and hood to get to where he needs to go. Eventually, that thing that we miss, those opportunities that we neglect to pour into people, to pour into others, that's going to come back to bite us, especially in a small country, 20/7, right? So I want men to understand that you cannot always expect yourself out of other people. Number one, we weren't all raised the same. A lot of times we had different resources growing up, different experiences growing up, sometimes even in the same family. Kids can have different experiences with different parents. When we expect ourselves out of other people, we make the assumption that people had what I had. And so we speak with arrogance instead of speaking with empathy. We speak with vitriol instead of speaking with understanding. And I always say to people, your energy is what introduces you to others before you open your mouth. True. And so we got to make sure that we're correcting our energy that's dealing with our trauma. dealing with the abuse that we have endured. If we don't deal with ourselves, how can we now be a source of strength and learning and direction for others to follow?
Thank you for that. Brother Bostwick, I want to bring you in. Shaw, I'll come into you, Sean's coming to you shortly, Shaw, so stay tuned. Brother Bostwick, you mentioned, as it was, your grandmother and raising the children in the community, being an umbrella of care and love. Everyone comes underneath this umbrella and we protect you from the elements, we protect you from the falling rain. What does mentorship, because I'm quite familiar, that's why I'm asking this question of you, the mentorship and the power of it, what does it do for the young person?
Yeah, thanks again, Sean.
Yes, sir.
As we said, mentorship is leadership by example. And normally, when you catch a young man between the ages of 9 to 15 is where you mold their minds. And even as a member of the United States Marine Corps, one of the things...
Thank you for your service. Thank you for your service.
One of the things that I found is that many of the very, very young men that came into my platoons were 17, 18, and 19.
Wow.
And you could have molded a young man from then, but it goes back to discipline. And I always try to trace back to how we are disciplined, to our Afrocentric roots, per se. Does having that horse harness hang up in the front room that beat everybody makes us any better? Okay. We have to examine these things, because I'm trying to figure out when we say beating a child every day, correct a child. I used to dive off the ambulance. At least I tried to dive off the ambulance in the Flavia boat rope a quarter when I should have been stationed at the cross. I said, that's why my left voice, because my grandmother said, you should have been in church and not trying to make money.
You get what you're looking for.
Okay, so it goes back to the fundamentals of discipline. And we must bring that flavor of discipline back into our society that we seem to have lost. And I say that because we compromise on discipline. Discipline is either you're right or you're wrong.
Right.
And once a young man understands, like Baba said earlier, once he shows you the road that is right and wrong, you wouldn't be on the bus in Foxhill going up in the evening.
Right.
Okay. I tired of my name getting called in Roslyn Square. Okay. Because they know me from over the hill. True. But they going up on the bus. We trying to keep more young men from going up on the bus and try to put more young men in the homes to be fathers. So what we have to do, we start from a very young age in terms, we have 11 lodges, as you know.
Yes.
And we do mentorship programs every week. And I've been pushing it, because when you find young men who don't even have a toothbrush, that's a problem.
Yeah.
Because first of all, your hygiene is gone out the window. So therefore, your social fabric begins to break down. Because first of all, you're only talking about it because your mouth ain't clean. Second of all, you don't even know about deodorant. And we've been teaching our young men how to hygienically present themselves. That's the first step for you being a young man. And then you go to the next step, education. Because without education, all is lost. Justification for higher education is a poster I had in my room that showed a Porsche, a Lamborghini, a Rolls Royce. And it said justification for higher education. But the means of that was all what? Trying to earn money. But not trying to fundamentally adjust someone's life in saying that if you do the right things, these are what could happen. And in our society, and if you trace it back from 1895, if you walk forward from the Seminole Indians bringing us across into Red Bay and the Gullah, or whatever you want to associate it with.
Yes.
We've always been communal people.
True.
We've always we've always taken care of everybody in our community.
Right. You would hear your mother say, "Here, come take this plate down to so and so."
All the time.
Put us in this house, but no. I said, take this plate down to Miss Johnson.
Take that to Miss Thompson.
Right.
Take that, and you wondering why you delivering these things, but you had no choice. Go and chip it down and take this one.
Right,
Go
right.
This one.
Right.
But you see, that is what we have lost, but that's what we see another culture doing right in our face.
Preach.
Okay.
Mm.
And you, like I say, you cannot be apologetic. You have to be honest. And I think a lot of us have tried to sugarcoat, try to be nice.
Yeah.
When you're dealing with war, it's either beans or bullets. Okay? Okay? You cannot play with it. Okay, I wrote many op-eds, and I wrote many. And one of the ones that I always remember is Stop the Political Tennis Match. When I referred to Ethan Burrow, and when they volleyed for almost an hour, and we were playing tennis back and forth. Our country needs to have a dynamic shift. We need leadership that is going to say, look here, in our social dynamics, we have problems. Sandlands is the same size as it was in the 60s, but we have a bigger populace. You know how much people out there on the street sleeping every night? We have people on the road sleeping every night. When I leave a function and I pack up a truckload of food, I don't pack that up just to say, I told you, know. I pack it up to feed people. Okay? Right now in Fox Hill, they know when I travel abroad because why? Every hotel I stay in, I make sure shampoo, tooth, everything go up the road. Okay. Ernst & Young, J.S. Johnson, those companies used to keep the magazines for me because those are what I sent up to the road. I sent them to the big, what they call it, the big university. Okay. Because I say, brothers, you all read some things while you sit violin.
Learn something.
Okay. And we who know better must do better. Okay. Because we have a lot of young men out there. I mean, speak to our police officers. Because they're human beings too, you know. Oh. And I must give our commissioner, Anton those props. Because our focus right now is on uplifting in communities. It's not about locking up. It's not about bringing. The police do their job. But there's a social side of policing that has been missing. Because when my uncle, those were policemen in the 60s and 70s, I used to wonder why someone's young man on the back of his truck going to the farm. And now I learn who those young men are. Those are young men who didn't have homes. Those are young men who were trying to do better. He put them in St. Agnes Band. He put them in this, he put them in that. And you'll be surprised to know who they are today. Because I know if they're listening. And you and many of us know who they are because they're top of the game in this country.
Should our authorities, and I don't want to put it on the authorities because, you can't legislate morality. That's not the thing. Where does the shift begin for our men to realize that they are needed in the home? I'm going somewhere with this. I've done some research and found out that those who would prey on children, right, would seek out a single mother with children because the father isn't there. And she becomes, quote, a soft target, bringing it back to fatherhood and the importance of men in the home. I go back as far back with the research to the welfare situation where if the man isn't in the home, the woman doesn't get as much money with our neighbors to the north. Sharma, that you respond to this. But not that you would know, I just want you to respond to it from your perspective. But that welfare situation that has been promulgated, and then also to, the importance of the man being in the home. We are the protectors, we are the providers, we are the ones we are the first and last line of defense against any nefarious activity coming into the home. That's who we have been, that's what we've been mandated to do by God. So how do we go about drilling into the heads of our young men our society, the things that we view in media, social media, that the man is needed. You know, they frown upon certain Judeo-Christian things that preach this, and then we go for the popular thing that's on television. We watch all these things, all these shows where the man isn't even seen, or the man is considered a gigolo, or he's praised for being a pollinating bee, as it were, going from flower to flower. You know, how do we change that? How do we change that? Anyone of y'all can back that?
Sure, let me tell you, it's called sacrifice. Yeah. The Lou Adleys, the Vinsberg, the men who made a difference in people's lives.
Sacrifice.
The salt of the earth. You know, I mean, yeah, we can accomplish a lot of things because we were blessed, and to whom much is given, much is required. That's. But the thing is, we could be anything we want to be in terms of how we guide our life and but we have to make the sacrifice to understand that your calling, like Bible, like Thompson, we see a void.
Yeah, big old void.
And when you see that void, that means that's your calling. That means you have to go now and reach back to those ones who people don't have time for, but who people would commercialize for. Okay.
Right.
I would have you spend money to come to a concert.
Oh, yeah.
But I wouldn't sit down and tell you what you're doing wrong in your home.
Right. It's true. Spin on your head and spend that bottle and spend that 3 for 5,
Yeah.
you know?
You know, the fact of the matter is that a lot of men in our society, while we are successful in our business acumen, in our professional acumen, we have to understand that the societal challenges are still our responsibility.
Part and parcel to the problem we face is that when you speak, and I would really like to hear Shah's response.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. After this, is part and parcel is that when you look at it, we focus more on the intelligence quotient when we're dealing with people, but we don't focus on the emotional quotient, the social quotient, or the adversary quotient. We don't focus on developing these things in people to make them a whole person. But then we ask them to go out there and function in these capacities without having any form of development in those other areas other than their intelligence quotient. Right? So we put them in an academic straitjacket.
Right.
And just say, okay, once you come out of this academic straitjacket, all of these other aspects of your life are supposed to be the path to say it.
John, you know, and I always use this just to point out, all our fingers are not the same length, you know, but they belong to the same hand. And my mother always used to say that, so always remember. And if you move the thumb, you're nothing but an ape. So think about it.
Sure, please chime in with that one, please.
Yes, and you know, yes, and you know what? I was as you all were talking, I was sitting up here and I was thinking about what makes a father, and so there are so many different dynamics to it, right? And so a father is a safe place, a safe place. A father is someone who has self-discipline and self-control. A father who is someone who is present. A father who is someone that is humble. A father who is someone that is selfless. Okay. A father who is someone that teaches and that also has structure. A father is someone that is a man of valor, a man of integrity, and a man that takes responsibility and accountability for himself. So that being said, I feel like there is so much that the fathers can do and that can give, right? But a lot of times the fathers are being dismissed in this day and age, and that is a major factor as far as the downfall of our younger generation. A lot of women don't see that the father is so much, has so much value, right? And so what happens is you when it comes to this dynamic, right, you have these mothers, you know what I mean, that downplay the father's role. They'll talk against the father. They will undermine the father. They will belittle the father. They will disregard the father, but they don't understand how much of a disservice they do to the child and also the family dynamic when they do this. Okay. And even to what you guys were saying, I like to take it back to a historical standpoint, right? Even before the social agenda started, even before the welfare system started, there was the buck breaking, which taught women and children to not trust the father because they would do this public humiliation and tear down of the man, especially the ones that look like us. So there is so much to cover when it comes to this, but a lot of people don't know how to think for themselves nowadays, and they don't know how to restructure and unlearn that way of thinking. So to what you guys just said, there's so much more, there's so much more I have to say to that, but yeah.
Thank you, Shaw. We're gonna deal with that after the break. We're gonna take a break right now, and when we come back, we'll be talking more about fatherhood, the importance of it, and what it looks like, or what it would look like moving forward. Because there's so many challenges we're beset by in terms of people doing social reengineering and all these things, and taking us totally in a totally different direction, and how we hold on to these values that we were raised with, the ways and mores that have brought us thus far and will keep us moving forward. We're tuned into Man Talk, a special edition of Man Talk Live here in studio, and stay right here with us. We'll be back in a few short moments.
At Frame Studio, as soon as you enter the door, we showcase any individual that comes in there and make it feel like they are at home. The space itself is 1,800 square foot. Our site wall, which is industry standard also, is 24 feet wide. You can do anything that you can possibly think of. At Frame Studio, under our theme now, Create More, we look at Frame Studio as a canvas. And any artist knows a canvas is blank, and then you create whatever you want to do, right? So we have where you could rent tools. We will have workstations that people could rent out to anyone inspiring to do what I've done, what my colleagues have done, or any other journey. I would say to you, don't be afraid. The worst someone can actually tell you is no. So if you have a vision, you have an idea, not everyone will get it. But if you believe in your vision, you believe in your idea, I say go wholeheartedly at it.
For more information about the Creative Entrepreneurs Initiative and the Crafting the Bahamas workshops, email info@sbdcbahamas.com or call us at 461-7232.
In an effort to support and promote a safer Bahamas, ZNS Radio has removed all music promoting violence from its music rotation. Listen and let us know if you hear any music that does not meet our standards. The National Voice remains committed to assisting to reduce crime in the Bahamas.
ZNS has got you covered this summer for all your advertising needs at great rates. Get ads on ZNS TV, the ZNS Radio Network, and the TV community page. Book before June 7th and get the local Federation Championship Baseball bonus. Contact your account executive or call ZNS Sales at 502-3800 for more details. Special summer package rates valid until July 31st.
The ZNS Radio Network is the only Bahamian radio network that's heard everywhere in the Bahamas and the Turks and Caicos Islands.
From 107.1 in Bimini
To the Lights 810 AM and Power 104.5 in Grand Bahama to Nassau's Inspiration 107.9 FM.
The National Voice 1540 AM throughout the Family Islands and into the Turks and Caicos Islands.
The ZNS Radio Network is the only one that brings the best in music.
The latest in news, sports, and weather.
to every settlement in the archipelago and the Turks and Caicos Island.
The ZNS Radio Network.
The only one that's heard everywhere in the Bahamas and the Turks and Caicos Islands.
Because isn't that what a real Bahamian radio network should do?
Are you searching for light in life in these trying times? The kind that impacts and influences every sphere of society? Then tune into the program Living by Faith with Apostle Valentina Williams of Life Changers Ministries International every Sunday at 9:30 a.m. right here on ZNS 1540 a.m. and 104.5 FM. For more information, please contact the church's office at 362-1173 or visit our website at www.lcmibahamas.com.
Yes, it's Father's Day, but it's also another exciting edition of Man Talk with Sean Innes. We are focusing on the men, as we should. taking a deep dive into our relationship. Yes, it's those events that happen in a man's life before he becomes a father that determines what kind of father he will be. We are seeking to heal, restore, and mend, and it starts with the man. Special guests are male advocate, author, and counselor Shar Curry out of Los Angeles, Mr. Harrison Thompson, life coach and behavioral therapist, Mr. Anton Minitz, image enhancement consultant, and yours truly, Sean Innes, on 1540 AM, 104.5 FM, the National Voice of the Bahamas, this Sunday, June 15th, 2025. Not miss it.
The views expressed on this show, interview, or program are not necessarily the views expressed by the ZNS Radio Network and by extension, the Broadcasting Corporation of the Bahamas.
I can't hide myself. I don't expect you to understand. I just hope I can explain what it's like to be a man. It's a lonely road, and they don't care about what you know. It's not about how you feel, but what you provide inside that home. Yeah, I know this life can really beat you down. You wanna scream, but you won't make a sound. Got so much weight that you've been holding, but won't show any emotion. As a man that goes unspoken, now we can't cry when life gets hard. Unconditional love for women, children, and dogs. We know that we just have to play our parts, and don't nobody give a damn about our broken hearts. Yeah. As a man, we gotta pave our way. Our only function is to work and slave. There's no respect for you if you ain't paid. You're disregarded as a human and you can't complain. And if you ever make it up and actually reach that base and find a woman that you love and give her your last name, you'll feel the things that you provide is only why she stays. And when you try to explain, you'll say, I can't hide myself. I don't expect you to understand. I just hope I can explain what it's like to be a man. It's a lonely road, and they don't care about what you know. It's not about how you feel, but what you provide inside that. Don't give up, keep fighting. As a man, our sun is our horizon, and our father's actions play a role, and we end up like them. Though they can't let us see them hurt, cause we'll embody what they do and start a generational curse. No wonder most men are so depressed, all the things that they can't express. They go to war, get thrown on the shelf, then go back to war with their mental health. Then grab that bottle and ask for help, try to pull themselves out of hell, then fall back down and then realize that they're gonna have to do it themselves. It's the circle of life. As a man, you provide. They don't know what you're worth till the day that you die, and that's when they start crying. Then move on to a man to confide in. That's why we feel we can't hide ourselves. We don't expect you to understand. We just hope we can explain what it's like to be a man. It's a lonely road, and you don't care about what we know. It's not about how we feel, but what we provide inside that home. That home. We what we provide inside that home.
1540 AM, 104.5 FM, the National Voice of the Bahamas, and that song that we were listening to just before we came back is done for us by Dax, To Be a Man, and I think the song expertly, beautifully epitomizes and encapsulates what it's like to be a man sometimes. You're screaming with your hand over your mouth. You're not able to fully and properly express. And during the break, I told them I'm not the only one in here with a brain, and I always by committee, I asked my brothers in here what should we pivot to. But before I go any further, I just want to extend sincere and heartfelt condolences to the families who've lost loved ones, and namely today, we saw it even on Father's Day, today, the loss of life, and it's sad, and condolences, and it's not lost on me or anyone that this is a very emotionally charged day, in that there are people who have lost their fathers recently, not so recently, 10, 15, 20 years ago. The pain never goes away, and especially if you lost your father in a very, very violent manner, and you long for that, you ache for that. And so again, you are in our thoughts and in our prayers wherever you are. And just today, the reality of life in the capital city hits us. And even just a few minutes ago, my producer is telling me that there's a